Thanks, Debbie. We're well aware of what the American people think of the Congress these days, probably best described by a four-line poem of Ogden Nash. He drinks because she scolds, he thinks. She scolds because he drinks, she thinks. Neither will admit what's really true. He's a drunk and she's a shrew. We understand the American people look at this place, they say, you know what, both have things to account for. And we accept that, but we didn't cause this economic wreck. It's our responsibility to fix what's wrong. And let me talk just for a moment about the jobs piece, because our job is to try to restart this economic engine and put people back to work. That is by far the highest priority for me, and I think for our caucus. Senator Dorgan and I have been working for about 3 months on jobs packages. We've passed a portion of it now. But let me just talk about it in the context of a bathtub. We're trying to fill a bathtub. The faucet is one thing. We're working on the faucet. But we've got to shut the drain down as well. Let me tell you something. I was on a Delta Airlines flight recently, and a guy's sitting beside me, and he's wearing sweats. And I said, where are you going? He said, well, I'm dressed this way because I'm going overseas. I'm going to Singapore, Thailand, and China. I said, why are you going there? Well, he said, my company, we're going to have our suppliers move their jobs from the U.S. over to one of those 3 countries because we can dramatically cut down on the cost of parts we purchase from them. And I'm thinking, here's a guy wearing sweats on a Delta flight, headed to Asia, and there are hundreds of American workers who don't know it. He's going to move their jobs to Asia. And they don't know those jobs are gone yet, but they're probably gone by now because that was a couple of months ago. I know it's a broken record. I've written a book about this, Take This Job and Ship It. I've been talking about this for a long time, but you've got to shut the drain down of these jobs moving wholesale overseas. Governor Rendell was involved in a fight in Pennsylvania. I just want to mention it to you because it is so symbolic. Pennsylvania House Furniture used a peculiar and valuable Pennsylvania wood to make fine furniture, upper-level furniture. Lazy Boy came to buy them out and said, we're moving Pennsylvania House Furniture to China. Governor Rendell, this is about 4 years ago, took heroic efforts to try to keep them in Pennsylvania. Lazy Boy said, no dice. And so the last piece of furniture, after a century of hiring Pennsylvanians to make it, the last piece of furniture that came off the line, the workers turned the piece over, and all the workers in the plant signed their name to the last piece of Pennsylvania House Furniture made by American hands. Somebody has that piece of furniture and doesn't understand the symbolism of what that meant. But that furniture is now made in China. They ship the wood to China, make the furniture, and ship the furniture back. Lazy Boy bought them and insisted that Pennsylvania House Furniture go to China. Well, guess what? Now Lazy Boy's also gone to Mexico and China. And 1,050 Lazy Boy workers lost their jobs. And it is going on and on and on. It is relentless. We have to find a way to close the drain. I just want to show you a couple charts. This is through the end of 2008. This is our merchandise trade deficit with the world. You see what's happening. When people talk about the deficits, if you don't talk about this, we're missing the boat. These are jobs gone overseas. That's what that means. Second one I want to show is symbolic of, this is China. You all of us understand what's going on in China. American firms in search of cheap labor, firing American workers, moving to China. Finally, let me show what's happening with respect to automobiles, and I'll be done in about a minute. This is automobiles in Korea. 98% of the cars driven on the streets of Korea are Korean-made. Why is that the case? They don't want foreign cars in Korea. They ship us 700,000 cars a year. They put them on a boat, ship them here to be sold to the U.S., and they take 4,000 or 5,000 of our cars back into their marketplace because they want to sell Korean cars here, and they don't want American cars sold there. Now let me tell you one more secret. China's ramping up a very large automobile export industry, very large, and we'll be seeing cheap Chinese cars in America very soon. We have a bilateral trade agreement with China with whom we have a very large deficit, trade deficit. And our agreement with China says this: when you ship your cars to our country, we will impose a 2.5% tariff. And if we ship American cars to China, you may impose a 25% tariff. We, out of our own ignorance, have said with China, with whom we have a large deficit, we will give you a 10-to-1 advantage in tariffs. You think we're going to keep jobs in this country that way? We are not. We've got to stand up for American interests. And I know that when I talk this way, if you read about this talk in the Washington Post, they'd say it's some sort of xenophobic, isolationist stooge that doesn't see over the horizon and doesn't understand free trade. They'd say it's a protectionist. I want to protect this country's economic interest by demanding fair trade rules. that don't exist now. We're working very hard on the faucet. We have to find a way to plug the drain and keep American jobs here. One last point. I stuck a Buy American provision in the Economic Recovery Act. Why, you'd have thought that I'd put a nuclear bomb somewhere in that legislation. What an awful thing to have done, to say if we're trying to resurrect and stimulate the American economy, that we ought to buy American. But you know what? I put that in on the Senate side. It's there. And finally, at long, long last, we made it stick. And it's now the law of the land with respect to the Recovery Act. And I don't care how long they complain about it. It was the right thing for the Congress to do.
Thank you.